The galaxy had seen many wars. Stars burned with the scars of battles, and planets carried wounds that would never heal. Among the most powerful rulers stood Queen Serenia, an alien monarch whose empire stretched across 100 systems. Her name inspired both fear and respect. She was tall, graceful, and carried herself with the pride of someone born to rule. Her people, the Zyari, were known for their strength and intelligence, and no other empire dared challenge them openly. Yet behind the shining throne and endless parades of victory, there was tension. The Queen's Council warned her that rebellion brewed among her vassals. Some commanders whispered that her empire had grown too vast to control. Others believed she had grown too proud. Enemies circled like predators waiting for the right moment to secure peace. The Queen made a decision that surprised the galaxy. She would take a human husband. Humans were not considered powerful in this part of space. They were viewed as weak creatures from a death world called Earth, a planet that had survived countless natural disasters and wars. Still, most alien species believed humans were fragile, not fit for the politics of empires. So when the Queen announced her marriage to a human, many laughed. The human's name was Daniel. He was simple in appearance, with short dark hair and calm eyes that never seemed to waver. Unlike the alien lords who wore shining armor and carried themselves with arrogance, Daniel bowed politely, spoke softly, and never argued. To the alien court, he looked ordinary, even forgettable. Some thought he was chosen only to be a symbol, a token marriage to tie Earth and the Zyari Empire together. The day of the wedding was filled with whispers. The grand hall was decorated with banners of silver and blue, the colors of the Queen's house. Rows of alien nobles lined the chamber, their eyes sharp and full of judgment. They expected the Queen to look radiant, as she always did. They expected Daniel to stumble, to show his weakness, to prove their doubts right. But Daniel stood calmly by the Queen's side. He did not boast. He did not shrink away. His expression was steady, as if he belonged there. The Queen herself seemed unreadable. She had agreed to this marriage for peace, not for love. She had never looked at Daniel as anything more than a piece on the board of politics. Still, she noticed something in him that day. He did not tremble in front of the hostile eyes of the court. He did not flinch when the warlords whispered insults just loud enough for him to hear. Instead, he simply met their gaze, quiet but unbroken. The marriage ceremony passed, and Daniel became her husband. The court bowed to the Queen, though many sneered in secret. Some of her generals even joked behind closed doors. A human, they said, is nothing more than a pet. How could he stand beside the Queen of the Zyari? But Daniel did not react to their scorn. He spent his days walking through the palace gardens, learning the customs of the empire, and listening. He watched the guards train, studied the council meetings, and quietly remembered every face that glared at him with disdain. The Queen, though busy with her duties, noticed how silent he was. She once asked him during a quiet evening, "Do you not feel small, standing in a court where everyone doubts you?" Daniel looked at her with calm eyes. "Feeling small is not the same as being weak," he said simply. The Queen did not answer, but those words lingered in her mind as weeks passed. Daniel's presence in the palace became a subject of gossip. The nobles expected him to embarrass himself sooner or later. They wanted to see the Queen regret her choice. But nothing of that sort happened. He moved with quiet dignity, and though he spoke rarely when he did, his words were thoughtful. Some servants began to respect him, though they never admitted it aloud. One night, during a council meeting, the tension grew sharper. Reports came of unrest in the border systems. A powerful warlord named Carvos had begun gathering forces. He claimed that the Queen had insulted the Zyari people by marrying a human. Many of the generals shifted in their seats, their faces betraying hidden agreement. The Queen struck her staff against the ground, her voice cold. "Carvos will be dealt with. Let no one here forget that loyalty is the foundation of this empire." The room fell silent, but Daniel saw the doubt in their eyes. He knew rebellion was not far. That evening, as they walked through the quiet halls of the palace, the Queen turned to him again. Her voice was lower this time, almost thoughtful. "You hear what they whisper. You see how they look at you. Do you regret standing beside me? Daniel paused, his gaze lifting to meet hers. "No," he said softly. "I do not regret it. They see me as weak because they do not know what strength means. They think power is only in armies, weapons, or titles. But real power is something else." The queen frowned slightly, curious. "And what do you call real power?" Daniel did not answer directly. He only gave a small smile and said, "One day, you will understand." The queen was not easily impressed. Yet she found herself thinking about his words long after he left. The days turned into weeks, and the tension in the empire grew. Rebellion whispered louder, and secret meetings filled the night. The queen prepared for war, but in her heart, she began to wonder about her human husband. There was something about him she could not quite explain. To the court, he was still ordinary. To her generals, he was still a mistake. But to the queen herself, he was becoming a mystery. And though she did not know it yet, the day would come when his true nature would reveal itself, and the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The marriage of Queen Serenia and Daniel was supposed to bring peace between humans and the Ziari Empire. But peace was not so easy to keep. Beneath the shining towers of the capital, voices of doubt grew louder. Many of the queen's subjects could not accept that their proud ruler had chosen a human as her husband. Daniel, however, continued to live calmly inside the palace. He walked the marble halls each morning, his footsteps soft against the smooth floor. Servants passed by him, bowing more out of respect for the queen than for him, but some had begun to notice his quiet strength. He never raised his voice, never demanded anything, yet his presence was steady, like a rock standing against the river. The queen's generals, however, were not as forgiving. During meetings, they often spoke as if he wasn't there. One evening, as the council gathered around the long silver table, General Oreth leaned forward. His dark eyes burned with scorn. "Your Majesty," Oreth said to the queen, "this human husband of yours weakens the throne. Already Carvos spreads rumors. He says you chose softness over strength. He gathers followers by the day. If we do not strike him down soon, he will have an army strong enough to challenge the crown." The queen's voice was sharp. "Carvos is a traitor. His followers are blinded by pride. They will learn that loyalty is not a choice, but a duty." The council fell silent, but Daniel noticed how some of the generals avoided her gaze. Their silence was not loyalty, it was hesitation. When the meeting ended, Daniel walked beside the queen in the quiet corridor. The torches flickered along the walls, their blue flames casting long shadows. "You know, they do not all support you," Daniel said softly. The queen did not look at him, her steps firm. "I know," she admitted, "but I cannot show weakness. If they sense doubt in me, the rebellion will grow even faster." Daniel studied her for a moment. Her silver crown caught the light as she walked, her head held high. To her people, she was a symbol of strength. Yet he could see the weight she carried in silence. That night, when the palace grew quiet, Daniel wandered into the gardens. The stars shone above, bright and endless. He thought about Earth, his home, so small and distant compared to the empire he now lived in. On Earth, people survived storms, wars, and disasters with stubborn determination. Humanity's strength was not in their size or power, but in their will to endure. He wondered if these aliens would ever understand that. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "You do not belong here." Daniel turned and saw General Oreth standing among the shadows of the garden. His hand rested on the hilt of his weapon, though he did not draw it. "Many of us fought our entire lives for the queen," Oreth continued, "and yet she chose you, a human, to stand at her side. What have you done to deserve that place?" Daniel met his gaze calmly. "I did not ask for this place, but I will not walk away from it." Oreth's lips curled. "One day, you will regret standing here." Then he turned and disappeared into the darkness. Daniel did not move for a long while. He knew the general's words were not only a warning, they were a promise. The following days grew tense. Reports came of Carvos gathering more support. His banners rose high on border worlds, and some of the Queen's commanders secretly sent him supplies. The council grew divided. Some demanded immediate war. Others argued for negotiations. The queen, however, remained firm. "We will not bow to a rebel," she declared. But even as she spoke with strength, the whispers grew. Servants in the palace carried rumors from one corridor to another. They spoke of Carvos's rising power, of generals who doubted the queen, and of the human who was nothing but a symbol of weakness. One afternoon, the queen found Daniel sitting alone in the library. Scrolls and glowing tablets surrounded him. He looked up as she entered, his expression calm as always. "You spend much time here?" she said, curious. "I like to learn," Daniel replied simply. "Your people's history is full of lessons. Some rise through pride, others fall because of it. But one thing is always the same: strength alone does not keep an empire together. Trust does." The queen raised an eyebrow. "And you think my people do not trust me?" "I think some trust you," Daniel answered, "but others fear you. Fear can hold people for a time, but when fear is broken, rebellion grows." The queen studied him. His words were plain, yet they carried weight. She had spent her life ruling through strength, through command. She had never thought about ruling through trust. Before she could respond, a guard rushed into the library. He bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but there is urgent news. Carvos has sent a message." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The guard handed her a tablet. A hologram flickered to life. Carvos appeared, his figure tall and broad, clad in dark armor. His voice was deep and full of challenge. "Queen Serenia," he said, "you have betrayed our people by marrying a human. You weaken our bloodline, our honor, and our pride. I give you one chance: cast aside your human and step down from the throne. If you refuse, I will take your crown by force." The hologram vanished. The library grew silent. Daniel waited for the queen to speak, but she stood motionless, her hands tightening on the tablet. Finally, she turned to him. "What do you think of this?" Daniel's voice was steady. "It is not about me. It is about you. Carvos uses me as an excuse, but his true desire is your throne. Even if I was not here, he would still rise against you." The queen looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "And if the rebellion comes to this palace?" Daniel's eyes held hers. "Then you will see what humans are truly made of." The tension in the empire reached its breaking point. Carvos's forces moved closer to the capital. Some of the queen's generals began disappearing from council meetings, their loyalty unclear. The palace guards grew restless, unsure whom to trust, yet Daniel remained calm. He walked among the people of the palace without fear, listening more than he spoke. Some servants began to whisper differently now. They said the human husband did not act like a fool. He carried himself with quiet confidence, as if he knew something no one else did. The queen noticed the change too. Though she did not say it aloud, she began to look at Daniel differently. She had taken him as a husband for politics, but perhaps there was more to him than she had believed. Still, doubts filled her heart. Could a human truly stand against what was coming? Or would he crumble when the storm arrived? As the days passed, one thing became clear: the storm was no longer far. It was at the palace gates, waiting to strike. And soon, Daniel's true nature would be tested in ways no one expected. The palace had never felt so tense. Rumors spread like wildfire. Carvos, the rebel warlord, was no longer hiding his movements. His fleets had been seen near the outer systems, and reports came daily of planets joining his cause. The council tried to appear calm, but Daniel could see the truth in their eyes' fear. The queen stood strong, but even she could sense the cracks forming in her empire. In the council chambers, her generals argued louder than ever. "We must strike now, before Carvos gains more strength." One shouted, "No." Another barked back, "If we attack too early, we may drive more worlds to his side." Amid the shouting voices, Daniel sat quietly at the edge of the chamber. He was not a council member, and most there treated him like an ornament. But he listened. He always listened. The queen finally silenced them with a wave of her hand. Her voice was cold and clear. "Enough. I will not let Carvos dictate the fate of this empire. We will prepare our defenses, and when he comes, We will crush his rebellion." The generals bowed, but Daniel saw the hesitation. Some of them still doubted her. Some perhaps even dreamed of joining Carvos that evening. As the queen returned to her private chambers, Daniel walked beside her. The golden doors closed behind them, shutting out the noise of the council. "You carry the weight of a galaxy," Daniel said softly. The queen sighed. For the first time in weeks, her shoulders seemed to lower, her guard dropping just a little. "They doubt me," she admitted. "Even in my own court, loyalty is fading. And Carvosi knows this. He does not only fight with weapons, he fights with words, with fear. That is how he grows stronger." Daniel studied her. The firelight from the chamber flickered across her silver crown. She looked both powerful and tired, like a warrior who never rested. "They will not follow fear forever," Daniel said calmly, "but they will follow hope. If you show them that, you will win." The queen tilted her head slightly. "You speak as if it is so simple. You think words alone can defeat an army?" Daniel did not answer right away. "Instead," he said, "when I was a boy on Earth, there was a storm, stronger than any we had seen. It tore down houses, broke bridges, flooded towns. But people did not run. They stood together. Neighbors who never spoke before shared food, carried each other through the flood, rebuilt walls. That was how we survived, not because we were stronger than the storm, but because we stood as one." The queen looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You speak of survival as if it is a weapon." "It is," Daniel replied. "The greatest weapon humans have ever had." The queen fell silent. His words lingered, heavy yet strangely comforting. Days later, the storm finally arrived. The palace shook as alarms blared through the corridors. Guards rushed to their posts, weapons ready. The skies above the capital city glowed with enemy fire. Carvos had arrived with his fleet, faster and stronger than expected. The council panicked. Some shouted for retreat, others demanded immediate surrender. The queen's voice thundered over them. "Silence. This is our home, and we will not abandon it." But even as she spoke with courage, Daniel saw the fear in the faces of the nobles. He knew the palace itself would soon become a battlefield. The first strike came at dawn. Carvos's soldiers stormed the palace gates, their black armor shining beneath the red sky. The queen's guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Soon the rebels breached the throne hall itself. Daniel stood at the queen's side as the doors burst open. Warlord Carvos entered, his broad figure towering over the others. His eyes burned with pride and hatred. "Serenia," he called out, his voice echoing. "Your rule ends today. You shamed our people by taking this human as your husband. You weakened our empire with your foolishness. Step aside, and I may yet spare you." The queen lifted her staff, her voice sharp. "You will never have this throne," Carvos laughed. "Then you will fall with it." He signaled his soldiers, and they surged forward. The queen's guards met them in a clash of steel and energy. Blades sparked, cries filled the hall, and the air shook with violence. The queen fought fiercely, her staff moving like lightning. She struck down soldier after soldier, her crown gleaming in the firelight. But even she began to tire as more rebels poured in. At her side, Daniel remained still. He watched as the battle raged, his expression calm, his eyes steady. The rebels barely glanced at him. To them, he was nothing, a fragile human, unworthy of notice. But then, something changed. As the rebels closed in around the queen, Daniel finally stepped forward. His calm eyes hardened, his body straightened, and for the first time, he spoke with a voice that carried through the chaos. "Enough." A single word cut through the noise like a blade. Some soldiers actually paused, startled by the strength in his tone. Daniel moved faster than anyone expected. His hand shot out, catching a soldier's weapon mid-swing. With a single motion, he twisted and sent the warrior crashing to the ground. Another soldier rushed him, and Daniel dodged with impossible speed, striking with precision that dropped the attacker instantly. The queen froze for a heartbeat, her eyes wide. She had never seen a move like this. The rebels, however, laughed at first. "The human dares fight?" They mocked. But their laughter died quickly as more of them fell before him. His movements were not wild or desperate, they were controlled, efficient, and unstoppable. The palace shook as Daniel unleashed the strength he had hidden all this time. His strikes were swift, his defense unbreakable. Every motion carried the weight of survival. It's the kind that had been carved into humanity through centuries of hardship. Carvos snarled, his pride wounded. "What trick is this? You think a human can defeat us?" Daniel met his gaze, his eyes sharp as steel. "You think humans are weak because you do not know our history. You do not know what it means to fight every day just to live. You do not know what it means to rise after every fall. That is human power." The hall grew silent for a moment, even amid the chaos. The queen's heart pounded as she watched him. This man she had thought ordinary. This husband she had chosen for politics, he was no ordinary human. Daniel turned back to the soldiers, his voice steady. "If you wish to reach the queen, you must go through me." For the first time, the rebels hesitated. The ordinary human they had mocked now stood like an unshakable wall. And behind him, Queen Saranya felt something she had not felt in a long time, not just strength, but hope. The breaking point had come. The rebellion was no longer just about a throne. It had become a test of what humanity truly was, and the galaxy was about to learn. The throne hall was chaos. The clash of weapons echoed against the marble pillars, sparks flying as steel struck steel. Soldiers shouted, their armored boots thundering on the floor. The banners of the queen's house shook as the battle raged beneath them. But in the center of the storm stood Daniel. What had begun as whispers of doubt had turned into silence of shock. The human, once ignored as weak, now moved like no one in the hall had ever seen. His strikes were precise, his defenses unbreakable. Every motion seemed effortless, as if he had trained for this moment his whole life. The queen's guards, though bloodied and tired, found new strength as they watched him. They had mocked him in secret, doubted his worth, but now they fought harder. Inspired by his courage, Queen Saranya herself could not take her eyes off him. For weeks, she had believed her human husband was nothing more than a quiet man bound to her throne for politics. But now, she saw a warrior. Not just a warrior, something more. Carvos, the warlord, growled in fury as his men fell one after another. His dark armor gleamed under the firelight, his massive blade cutting through the air. "Do not falter," he roared to his soldiers. "He is only human." But Daniel's calm voice cut through the hall. "Only human?" He parried a strike, spun, and disarmed his attacker in one smooth motion. "You speak as if humanity is weakness." "You are wrong." Another rebel lunged at him. Daniel sidestepped, his fist striking with the force of a hammer. The soldier collapsed. Daniel straightened, his eyes blazing. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. But we survive. That is what makes us powerful." His words carried through the hall, and even some rebels hesitated. There was something in his tone unshakable. It's undeniable that shook their confidence. The queen fought beside him now, her staff glowing with energy. Together, they stood like an unbreakable wall, back to back. Her heart raced as she realized how naturally they moved together, as if they had always been meant to fight side by side. "You hid this from me," she said between strikes, her voice breathless. Daniel blocked an attack and sent his enemy sprawling. "I had no need to show it until now." The queen's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, even in battle. "You are full of secrets, human." Perhaps, Daniel replied simply, his eyes never leaving the fight. The battle grew harsher. Carvos himself stepped forward, his blade sparking with raw power. He swung it in wide arcs, cutting down both guard and rebel in his fury. His voice was thunder. "You think your tricks can stop me? I was born for war." Daniel faced him, his stance steady. War is not only about strength. It is about endurance. It is about standing when others fall. That is what you will never understand. Carvos lunged, his massive blade crashing against Daniel's defense. Sparks flew. The force of the strike would have crushed any ordinary man, but Daniel held firm. Step by step, the two clashed, their fight shaking the hall itself. The queen watched, her chest tight. She had seen many warriors, many champions, but never a human who could stand against someone like Carvos. It was as if Daniel carried the spirit of every human struggle within him, the hunger, storms, the endless wars of Earth. The rebels began to falter. They had come certain of victory, believing the queen was weakened by her choice of husband. But now, the very symbol they mocked was destroying their pride. One soldier dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. Another followed. Soon, whispers spread among them, the human. "He cannot be defeated," Carvos roared in fury. He struck harder, faster, his pride driving him like fire. But Daniel's calm never broke. Each strike he blocked, each counter he delivered, chipped away at the warlord's confidence. Finally, Daniel stepped forward and struck with a force that sent Carvos crashing to the ground. His blade clattered across the marble floor. Silence filled the hall. Daniel stood over him, his breath steady, his eyes sharp. This rebellion ends now. The rebels froze. Their leader, their champion, lay defeated at the hands of the very human they had mocked. Slowly, one by one, they dropped their weapons. The queen's guards pressed forward, binding the rebels, driving them back. The throne hall grew quiet again, save for the crackle of flames in the braziers. When it was finally over, Queen Saranya turned to Daniel. For the first time in her long rule, she found herself speechless. She had seen countless battles, countless victories, yet nothing compared to this moment. "You," she whispered, her voice almost trembling. "You are not what I thought you were." Daniel looked at her, his expression calm but gentle. "I never wanted to be more than what I am, human. But perhaps that is enough." The queen searched his face, trying to understand him. Why hide such strength? Why not show them before? "Because strength is not for display," Daniel replied. "It is for the moment it is truly needed." And today it was needed. Her heart stirred in a way she had not expected. She had always believed power was loud, fearsome, something to be shown like a crown. But here stood a man who carried power quietly, who only revealed it when it mattered most. She stepped closer, her silver eyes softening. "You have changed everything, Daniel. Not only for me, but for my people. They will never see humans the same way again." Daniel gave a small smile. Then perhaps this marriage was not only for politics after all. The queen studied him for a long moment. In that silence, something shifted between them. Respect, trust, and perhaps something even deeper began to take root. News of the battle spread quickly through the empire. Whispers carried across worlds of a human who had stood against a warlord and won. Some laughed in disbelief. Others trembled in awe. But no one ignored it. For the first time, humans were spoken of with respect. No longer were they seen as weak outsiders. They were survivors, fighters, and now, symbols of strength. In the palace, the queen called another council. The generals bowed lower than before. Their mocking smiles were gone, replaced with quiet respect. They had seen what Daniel could do. They had seen what humanity could bring. The queen spoke with a stronger voice than ever. "This empire does not stand on bloodlines alone. It stands on unity. Those who fight beside me, no matter where they are from, will be honored. Those who betray us will face the same fate as Carvos." The hall rang with her words. None dared argue. At her side, Daniel remained silent, but his presence spoke louder than any words. That night, as they stood together on the palace balcony, the stars stretched endlessly above them. The queen's cloak shimmered in the starlight as she looked at Daniel. "You are full of mysteries. You're human," she said softly. "I thought I knew strength, but you have shown me something greater." Daniel gazed at the stars, his voice calm. "The universe will always test us, but so long as we endure, we will rise again. That is the way of humanity." The queen turned her eyes to him, her heart steady, but changed. For the first time in her reign, she felt not just like a queen, but like a partner standing beside someone who could share the weight of the galaxy. And though she did not say it aloud, she knew the truth in her heart. This human was no ordinary husband. He was the power she had never expected. The throne hall, once filled with chaos and the clash of weapons, was now quiet. The bodies of Carvos's soldiers had been removed, and the surviving rebels were imprisoned. The air still smelled faintly of smoke and scorched metal. The Queen's guards patrolled the hall, their steps careful but confident. Queen Serenia walked slowly across the marble floor, her eyes on her human husband, Daniel. The battle had been over for hours, yet she could not stop thinking about what she had witnessed. A man she had once considered ordinary had faced a warlord, armies, and the chaos of the throne hall and emerged victorious. Not only had he protected her, but he had saved the empire. She finally stopped beside him on the balcony, looking out over the capital city. The towers were still standing, the people below moving cautiously, unsure of what the next days would bring. She felt the weight of the crown differently now, just as a ruler. But as someone responsible for a future she had never imagined, Daniel stood quietly beside her, his gaze sweeping the horizon. Though he had fought fiercely, he showed no pride, no arrogance. He was calm, steady, as he always had been. That calmness was part of what had made him so powerful. The Queen spoke softly, almost to herself. "I have ruled this empire for decades, and I have faced many threats. But I have never seen strength like yours." Daniel's eyes met hers. "Strength comes in many forms. Yours is in wisdom, courage, and the will to protect your people. Mine is in endurance and survival. Together, it seems, we make a stronger force." The Queen looked at him with a mixture of admiration and awe. She had always known humans were different, but she had never imagined the depths of their resilience. In the days that followed, the empire began to heal. The imprisoned rebels were tried fairly, and those who had merely followed Carvos out of fear were given a chance to repent. The generals who had doubted the Queen slowly realized the truth. The empire's strength did not lie in alien blood alone, but in unity. Daniel did not seek recognition or titles. He continued to walk among the palace halls quietly, listening, observing, helping when needed. Yet wherever he went, whispers followed. The human who defeated Carvos, some said. The one the Queen trusted, others added. The Queen herself could not deny the change in her people's perception. Humans, once seen as fragile outsiders, were now respected. Not just Daniel, but humanity as a whole had earned a place in the galaxy's story. One evening, as the sun set over the capital, painting the sky in gold and red, the Queen called Daniel to the council chamber. The generals were assembled, their faces serious. "Daniel," she said, "your actions have changed the course of our empire. You have shown what humans are truly capable of. I would like you to address the council." Daniel stepped forward. His calm presence filled the room, and the generals, many of whom had once doubted him, looked on in respect. "I do not seek praise," he said simply. "I only wish to remind everyone here that strength is not always shown in weapons or power alone. It is shown in courage, in endurance, in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We fight together, or we fail alone." The room was silent. Then, slowly, the generals began to nod. They had witnessed his actions, and now his words made sense. Trust, respect, and unity would rebuild the empire more strongly than fear ever could. As the weeks passed, the palace returned to normal life. Markets in the capital bustled again. Soldiers trained with renewed purpose. The people celebrated their queen's victory. Yet amid all this, Queen Serenia found herself watching Daniel more closely. He remained quiet, humble, and yet his presence inspired everyone around him. Servants whispered that he had a strange power and aura that encouraged people to act bravely, to stand tall. Even the young children in the palace seemed to sense it. Following him curiously, but respectfully one night, the Queen invited him to the palace gardens. The stars shimmered above them, the air cool and peaceful. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said softly. "Not just for me, but for the empire. I never knew humans could be so extraordinary." Daniel shook his head gently. "I am not extraordinary. I am simply human. But we survive, endure. We rise when others fall. That is what you have seen. And perhaps it is enough to protect this empire, The queen studied him. Enough? No, Daniel. It is more than enough. It is remarkable. And it changes everything. I see now that strength is not only about power or bloodlines. It is about courage, loyalty, and the will to act when it matters most. He looked at her quietly. And you, your majesty, have shown me that leadership is not only about fear, but about wisdom and heart. We are stronger together than apart. A breeze passed through the gardens, rustling the leaves. The queen felt a warmth she had never felt before. Just as a ruler, but as a partner. She had gained more than a human husband. She had found an ally, true companion, who would stand beside her through anything. The empire's borders grew secure again. Carvos and his followers were imprisoned, and the queen ensured that justice was fair but firm. Word spread across nearby star systems of the human who had stood beside the queen. A story that inspired humans and aliens alike. Humans in distant colonies sent messages of pride. One of our own, they said, has earned respect across the stars. The queen received many envoys, each bowing not just to her, but to Daniel as well. Acknowledging the role he had played in saving the empire, despite the attention, Daniel remained modest. He helped rebuild schools, trained soldiers in strategy, and teach diplomacy where he could. His calm, steady presence encouraged cooperation rather than fear. The queen watched him, admiration growing each day. She realized that she had once underestimated him not because he lacked power, but because his power was quiet, hidden, and only revealed when it was truly needed. One afternoon, she approached him in the palace courtyard. Soldiers trained nearby, their motions sharp and precise. "Daniel," she said, "you have shown the empire what it means to be human. And you have shown me what it means to trust, to believe, and to stand beside someone without doubt." Daniel looked at her, his expression calm. "And you have shown me what it means to lead, to care for more than oneself, and to protect an entire people. We have both learned from each other." Queen smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Yes, we have. And together, we will lead this empire into a new age, not with fear, but with hope." Daniel nodded. Together. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The palace gleamed under its glow. For the first time in her reign, Queen Serenia felt a quiet certainty. She had faced rebellion, danger, and doubt and survived. But now, with Daniel by her side, she knew the empire's future was brighter than ever. Across the galaxy, the story spread the tale of the human who had shown unimaginable courage, the queen who trusted him, in the empire that had learned the meaning of true strength. And within the palace, as stars sparkled above, the queen turned to her human husband and said softly, "You are not what I expected. You are more—" Daniel smiled quietly. "Then perhaps that is exactly what was needed." Side by side, they looked out over the capital city. Together, they had faced the storm, survived the battle, and reclaimed the throne. And together, they would guide the empire into a future where courage, unity, and the hidden strength of humanity would shine brighter than any star.